In this video, I'm going to walk you through part 2 of 3 big takeaways from the movie Marriage Story from the perspective of a life coach. Hi, I'm Kelly Hurd, and I'm a life coach who helps working moms in leadership level careers beat their overwhelm, burnout, stress, and anxiety, and help them find the kind of work-life balance that works for them. In part 1 of this series, I covered how relationships are based on our thoughts about another person using characters Nicole and Charlie's interactions in what is considered to be the most emotionally intense scene of the movie. Our takeaway from that segment was a relationship fundamental, that if you want to have a great relationship with someone, all you need to do is have great thoughts about them. I'll put a link to that first segment in the show notes, so be sure to check it out after this one. Let's dive into part 2 and get coaching with Nicole and Charlie.
Makes me want to peel my skin off.
You'll never be happy. In LA or anywhere. You think you found some better opposite guy than me, and in a few years, you rebel against him because you need to have your voice. But you don't want a voice. You just want to complain about not having a voice.
I think about being...
Thank you, Charlie, for takeaway number 2. Happiness comes from within us and how we manage our thoughts, not from how we manage things outside of us. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with Charlie's assertion that Nicole will never be happy and that she'll rebel against her new guy in a couple of years. But let's take a look at that statement, because believing that we need to change the circumstances in our lives in order to be happy is such a common issue. So let's just imagine that Nicole agreed that being with Charlie and living in New York were what made her unhappy in their marriage, and now that she's moved on to a new relationship and is back living in LA, that she's happy again. As adults, we are responsible for our own emotional state, including happiness. And just like relationships, how we feel is based on the thoughts we decide to have, including where we're living or who we're in a relationship with. Because of this, we can decide to be happy regardless of our circumstances. We sometimes think that when we're feeling unhappy about our lives, that we'll be happier if we leave a relationship or a marriage. But really, that's only changing our circumstance, a factual situation in our lives. We might think that it's a house that we live in or a city that we live in that makes us unhappy, and that if we can just change the house or the city we live in, or change our jobs, or change our cars, or change our clothes, or other circumstances in our lives, that we'll be happy again. But that isn't true. We can decide to think loving thoughts about anyone, regardless of who that person is or what they do. Likewise, for the place we live in, we can decide that wherever we live is the greatest place in the world to live. That's why some people just love living in big cities, and some people just love living in open rural spaces. Two vastly different kinds of places. It's simply what they decided to think about those places that makes them happy. So to Charlie's point of you'll never be happy in LA or anywhere, when we're looking outside of ourselves for someone else or something else, some new or different circumstance to make us happy, we'll probably never be happy, because happiness comes from how we manage our own minds, not how we manage our circumstances. We need to do the work on ourselves to manage our own thoughts and emotions in order to be happy in any relationship and in any place. Now, here's another quick example later on in this scene.
You want to present yourself as a victim because it's a good legal strategy? Fine. But you and I both know you chose this life. You wanted it until you didn't. You used me so you could get out of LA.
I didn't use you.
You did, and then you blamed me for it.
The operative phrase here is, you wanted it until you didn't. Again, what he's asserting here is that she decided in the beginning of their relationship that moving from LA to be with him and develop her acting career in New York was her choice and made her happy. Then, as time went on, she chose to believe that New York no longer made her happy and that moving back to LA would. New York didn't change at all. Her life there didn't change. She wanted it until she didn't. Until she decided not to be happy. When we're able to understand how our thoughts affect our own emotional state and are able to choose thoughts that make us happy, we're able to break out of a vicious cycle of feeling the need to change our surroundings or our relationships in order to be happy again. Because when our happiness is driven from within ourselves and isn't reliant on something outside of us, we take back our power to become emotionally independent and living in emotional adulthood.
Pathetic.
People used to tell me that you were too selfish to be a great artist, and I used to defend you. They were absolutely right.
All your best acting is behind you. You're back to being a hack.
Oh, goodness. I could make this whole fight scene into a 10-part coaching series. But I'm going to stick with 3 parts for now, with this being the wrap-up for part 2, with our takeaway: happiness comes from within us and how we manage our own thoughts and emotions, not from how we manage things outside of us. Now, be sure to watch part 3 of this coaching series, where I break down...
You gaslighted me! You're a villain!
Stay tuned! And if you haven't caught part 1 yet, be sure to catch that one too for another great lesson from a life coach using an emotional scene from the movie Marriage Story. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, or like the Kelly Hurd Coaching Facebook page if you're watching this on Facebook. And if you know of someone else who could benefit from this life coaching lesson, please be sure to share it. If you think you would benefit from learning more about life coaching, head to kellyhurdcoaching.com and find out how to get started for free. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in part 3.